Let's go ahead and kick things off today with our opening keynote speaker. The opening keynotes today, we're glad to have him on board. It's with Colonel Charles Destefani. He's the Director of Platform Operations at the Department of the Air Force Chief Data Office. And Colonel Destefani delivers innovative data analytics capabilities to reduce the decision cycle time across all Air Force warfighting domains, and spearheads analytics initiatives in the logistics, information technology communities. And he's responsible for establishing a data strategy and reference architecture that encompasses both air and space forces in alignment with federal law and national defense strategy, of course. He's going to be talking to us again about the highlights and strategies in the Air Force Chief Data Office. So everyone, please join me in welcoming Colonel Charles Destefani. Go ahead, take it away, Colonel.
Good morning, Bobby. Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here at the Data and Analytics Summit here. And I will try to share my screen in typical Department of Defense fashion. We'll start walking through some slides. Can you confirm you can see my screen?
I don't see anything as of yet.
Okay, hold one. How are we looking now?
We're looking good now, Colonel.
Outstanding. Again, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm privileged to talk to you today about the journey that the Chief Data Office has been on for the last 2.5, 3 years in its inception, and the organization and the staffing and the technology and the policy that we are working actively to bring forward to the American forces, both for air and space, as we evolve forward and try to maintain parity in a globally competitive environment. The Air Force Chief Data Office, let me see here, was established by the Undersecretary Matthew Donovan to deliver data at the speed of operations. We want to be able to take advantage of the information that we have at our fingertips that's being created around the world by different sensors in operations, by the business systems, and provide that information to senior leaders so that they can make decisions better and faster than they've ever been able to do before. The mission of our office is to obviously empower and posture the Department of the Air Force, which, as Bobby mentioned, covers both air and space, for competitive military advantage on a global stage. The three things that the Chief Data Office is focused on from a mission perspective is, first of all, to create that culture for data. You can't have a digital organization unless you have people that understand digital technology and are fluent in those tools and technologies and how to leverage them and how to be innovative with that technology to push the mission forward in ways that it's never been done before. So we have to create career fields that don't exist today. In today's Air Force and government, we have statisticians, we have operations researchers, we have information technologists, but we do not have career fields for a data architect or a data engineer, as surprising as that sounds. So one of the things our office is doing in creating that culture goes all the way back to looking at the professions that we have and establishing data as a professional path that combines the high math skills of an ops researcher with the high technology skills of a cyber operations person or an information technology specialist. The other thing that we're trying to do that is always a challenge, if you talk to anybody that's tried to perform a data use case, their biggest frustration is actually getting their hands on the data itself. So our office is trying to be that catalyst for sharing data by doing things like proposing to Congress legislation to enable data sharing, updating the Privacy Act of 1976, trying to make data more visible, accessible, understandable, linked, and trustworthy. That Vault acronym is taken right out of the Department of Defense data strategy that was just signed in September. And we'll be talking a whole lot more about Vault as we go through this presentation this morning. And then finally, it's driving the data capabilities to enable artificial intelligence and machine learning for many different missions across the air and space forces, bringing state-of-the-art tools to the fight that industry takes for granted, that government has a hard time deploying because of different security regulations, privacy regulations, and all of the policies that we have to comply with at the DoD and the federal level. I mentioned Vault earlier. There are 7 goals for data in the DoD data strategy, and that includes Vault visible, accessible, understandable, linked, and trustworthy information, but also interoperability and secure. The Air Force came up with the concept of Vault back in August of 2018 and started using that as the foundation for our Air Force input to the DoD strategy. And at the DoD level, they added interoperability and secure, but we are maintaining this branding of Vault and Vault IS and pushing forward in our Department of the Air Force implementation plan, which is our approach to leveraging and maximizing value from the DoD data strategy. We've had quite the journey on establishing our data platform. For the office, I am actually a reservist who was activated in August of 2018 to help stand up the office. I have been working with the Air Force Chief Data Officer, Miss Eileen Vidrine, who, by the way, in July was named one of GovExec's top 100 executives for the DoD. So it's been a pretty exciting time with all of the work the Air Force has done in creating policy, creating technology, and bringing people together, both within the Air Force, but also across the joint community. The Vault data platform that we have is a cloud-hosted, scalable enterprise environment where we can actually work with government data sets on tools that are approved for use on the government networks. So our objective was to bring the data, the people, and the technologies together so that we could move fast as we make decisions. Our new Chief of Staff, General Brown's tagline is accelerate, change, or lose. So we are trying to embrace that rapid change by adopting cloud technologies, which we started several years ago and are finally making progress. But what this chart shows is how fast our journey has actually been when you compare to traditional government IT. We started with a team in July of 18, and by October of that same year, we had an IL4 ATO. At the time, the operations community was focused on readiness and doing a better job of predicting unit readiness by combining logistics, personnel, human resources, and financial and operations information together. We did what's called an execution order. We collected a bunch of information from Air Force legacy systems that at the time we were passing information around through snowballs and pushing it up into the AWS GovCloud environment. And we began doing analysis at that level. By January, we had our IL5 ATO, and we had about 10 terabytes of static data, which in the big data world isn't much, but it was a start. In April, we went forward with our first killer app for data visualization service that was published Air Force wide. We are working with the Installation Mission and Support Center out of San Antonio, and they were doing a global conference with all of their group commanders that account for all $17 billion in real property that the Air Force manages around the world at all of our locations. So the Installation and Mission Support Center had a team building Tableau dashboards that reflected the status of the facilities, the status of flight lines, the status of funding, and projected forward 30 years into the future on how those facilities will be affected given the funding profile that they were looking at from Congress for the capital improvements that were needed. And that was demonstrated to every group commander around the world. So essentially, every location that the Air Force has is a base. That base has a host wing. That host wing commander is like the mayor of that installation and is responsible for the buildings, the bridges, the roads, the power, the water. And the IMSC is designed to centrally capture, report, and facilitate the optimized use of resources across that entire enterprise. Well, we went live with this demonstration, and it was so well received that it has really launched a huge appetite for Tableau dashboards and visualizations across the Department of Defense. So much so that you can see as we progress to the right that, from our one project with 16 views that we started in April of 2019, we now have over 105 projects and almost 1,500 views on the Vault Data platform. We started with that initial block of 200 users that were civil engineers and group commanders. Now we have over 2,400 users on the platform. We have 48 different data science and analytics efforts that are going on that are all leveraging the cloud, leveraging the data sets that are available, and leveraging some of the tools that we'll talk about here in a little bit. In addition to that capability, we have added a similar Vault capability on the Secret network, on the AWS Secret Cloud. And we started that effort in August of 19 and went live in March, right in the middle of COVID. And as we went live with just one tenant and our Tableau server on the high side, now we have 9 tenants and over 300 users since March. And we expect most of our growth to be on the classified environments going forward into 2020. All right, the Chief Data Office tries to organize its mission value through the execution of use cases. The best way to make a difference is to solve problems. So we define a data problem as a use case so that we can make immediate results, control the scope, and engage people at a sufficiently detailed level to make a difference locally. So we think globally, act locally. So the process that we follow is to define the mission problem and then look at what data is available that can help us define, refine, enhance, and discover about that mission set, perform statistics, machine learning, different statistical algorithms, Spark cluster analysis against that data, look for correlations, look for insights, and then take those insights and display them through some form of visualization tools, which can either be custom built with R or Python, or using a visual package like I just mentioned called Tableau. We've worked with several different communities. We've had dozens of use cases that relate to how do we reduce the shortage of pilots, for example. Their Aircrew Crisis Task Force did a series of courses of action, we call them in the military COAs, to how do we close the gap between the number of pilots that we need and the number of pilots that we have coming in the pipeline. We've also done several use cases around financial efforts. The maintenance, repair, and overhaul program is using our environment to optimize the data that they're getting to go live with their maintenance, repair, and overhaul system coming up. The F-35 Joint Program Office has 3 different efforts going on in our Vault environment right now to optimize and modernize the way they do logistics and communication across the operations and talking with coalition partners. So one of the challenges, the whole topic of today is how do we get to a digital organization? The One of the challenges that we have is that we have a lot of smart people working in local mission sets doing very great things, but we don't have that ability to interact with each other. Going back to the goal of the DoD data strategy for all of us to be interoperable, one of the things that we have here that we pulled this analogy out of the Lego movie is what we have today is a lot of master builders, people that are focused on their single problem set, are looking, at the data, at the world as they see it, and really doing amazing and innovative things. But what we need is that overall enterprise environment where we're able to know that the lights going north south are green, that when the lights going north south are green, that the lights going east west are red, and that we have those kinds of data flow controls and standards on units of measure or standards um, on information exchange. Before this conversation, I was participating in a call with the Joint All Domain Command and Control community talking about the National Information Exchange Model, NEAM, which is a global standard that the DoD is embracing at the DoD Chief Data Office level, and the Air Force is aligning to that so that uh, we can participate with not only across our own service, but with our sister services, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, Space Force, and our international partners and all the members of NATO, so that we can work together and effectively combine forces internationally to do the job that needs to be done at the Department of Defense level. And it's all about making data a strategic asset. So everything we've talked about, having the policies in place, such as the data science reference architecture and a governance model that starts with the flag officers, the general officers and senior executive service members, and goes down to colonels and civilian executives. At the data board level, we have a data council at the executive level, a data board at the operational level, and then at the tactical level, we have working groups, a data architecture working group and an enterprise information model working group that's all focused on data exchange, data services, and data sharing. Combining that with the technology in the cloud and the mission sets that we have with the smart individuals solving mission problems, that's how we get to leveraging data as a strategic asset. Okay. I am showing 22 minutes after the hour. I was hoping to blast through this and then leave some time here for question and answer. So, Bobby, are there any specific questions that folks would like to address in the last few minutes that we have?
Yeah, we do have a few questions. Thanks, Colonel, for all the information. I think the first one was kind of a follow-up to the Vault. You have the Vault IS, and I believe you had said interoperability and secure. Can you kind of break down a little bit more about what the IS is, how the interoperability and security plays into the Vault?
Absolutely. The the interoperability is around the fact that everybody has their data in their own location for their specific mission sets. So I mentioned the information model that we need to be able to exchange data. Well, right now, we have data platforms that are hosted on-prem. We have data platforms that are hosted in Azure, in Google Cloud, and in Amazon Cloud. And one of the things that we need for interoperability is to create that operational data fabric so that data in the Air Force can be shared with the Department of Defense, and data created by the operators in theater can be shared with the business strategists back in Washington. So our Vault data platform has electronic exchanges, automated exchanges with the Department of Defense's Advana data platform, with Space Force's Unified Data Library, with the Vice Chief of Staff's Project Brown Heron. So we have that interoperable approach so that we can exchange information and expand that breadth without having to centralize all of our information into one location. Miss Vadrine likes to talk about the Air Force right now as the land of 10,000 lakes. We're like Minnesota. And what we'd like to be is more of a model where we get to something like the Great Lakes, where we have 5 or 6, some number less than 30 of data platforms where they are interconnected by a series of roads or canals and rivers, so to be able to share information, but we don't have a single point of vulnerability in any one spot.
All right, so kind of as a follow-up to your 10,000 lakes there a little bit, are most of the platforms that you utilize in the Chief Data Office, are they created internally, or did you utilize some third-party providers for that, or kind of a combination of both?
That's an excellent question. Within the Chief Data Office, we wrote the data science reference architecture, and that outlines everything that's needed to have a data-driven organization or a digital background. So it starts from the core infrastructure to the metadata services to the analytics and processing and visualization services for application delivery. Um, so the Vault data platform is one example that we built internally to serve the needs of the enterprise to do artificial intelligence and machine learning, because there wasn't really anything that was available at the time that could move fast enough to do what we needed to do and have an immediate impact as a new organization. Uh, some of the other organizations, for example, Weather has a huge infrastructure that's based on network for doing global weather forecasting and sensor collection. The space forces are collecting commercial information from companies like L3 and and Lockheed that fly satellites, and they're making that satellite telemetry available to the higher levels of classification so that the Space Operations Center has real-time dashboards that combine both military and commercial data sets. Uh, the personnel folks have an entire suite, a portfolio of systems, hundreds of systems that we use for managing our assignments, our leave balances, our pay, what have you. And those are all combined into a cloud-based talent management data environment.
All right, so kind of that sounds like it's kind of brought you down to 5,000 lakes now, anyways. For the third party providers that you do use, I know sometimes getting contracts with the government can be a bit of a challenge. Kind of lengthy, time consuming. How long is over and above that process? How long is the vetting process for you to implement anything that you decide to go with? Is it pretty turnkey relatively quickly, or does it take quite a bit of time?
It takes comparatively quickly. Normally, when a vendor with a product tries to implement something in the Department of Defense, if it's never seen it before, it can take up to a year to get it through the scans and the security wickets and the patching, because there's an iteration back and forth between the product developer and the government and the cyber communities on what's allowed, what's not allowed, ports that can be opened. In our office, we have embraced a technique called component level security assessments. So for new tools that aren't already approved for use or evaluated for use by the cyber community, we have a procedure where we can follow to scan the tool, document the ports, apply the security settings called STIGs, and then mitigate those locally and apply for acceptance to be used on the government network. So As an example, we deployed our Shiny open source application in less than 45 days in response to COVID.
Nice. So, I noticed that the time frame for getting this the vault implemented and off and running, it's a pretty good start right now. So, kind of looking forward into the future, what would you like to see added to that platform to get you up closer to 10,000 lakes again in the next 2 to 3 years? What would you like to see added to what you already have?
Well, the good news is we have that reference architecture as a roadmap. And right now we're probably about 70% complete in filling in the gaps of the capabilities that we think we need. But some of the additional things we need to improve on are our enterprise data catalog aspect. We have a product selected and are implementing that now, but actually running that catalog, automatically discovering the data that's in the cloud and populating glossary elements that we can exchange information with to be more accessible and interoperable. But then also doing things like auto ML so that we can accept a whole library of machine learning algorithms and give our data scientists, ops researchers, and data engineers the opportunity to discover appropriate correlations across a vast library of machine learning algorithms as opposed to reinventing the wheel every time.
Yeah, so I noticed when you ended off here, and I'm going to kind of go out of order with these questions. I apologize for that. But when you're talking about data as a strategic asset, that means a lot of different things to a lot of different companies, I think, depending on the industry verticals. Some of them as a strategic asset, they're referring to it more in monetary terms. But as far as for the Air Force and in the Space Force, if you could just kind of elaborate a little bit more, how is data a strategic asset specifically for those two departments, if you will?
Wow, there's a lot of ways to answer that question. The Joint All-Domain Command and Control community is focused on the pointy edge of the spear, if you will, being able to take information from a sensor that sees a stimulus in a situation and being able to close that decision time between when you see something happening and what you decide to do about it. So that JADC2 mission is the same is what our program called the Advanced Battle Management System that was architected by the acquisition community, Mr. Preston Dunlap, is all about, is understanding what that cycle is and the complexity of the the process. There are 28 different components that are defined in that ABMS architecture that are all very substantial technologies that go from the end devices themselves, or from the sensors down to the user end devices that include the gateways, the data repositories, the catalogs, the command dashboards, and everything that's needed in between to close that loop. The other part about decision using data as a strategic asset looks at the business systems side of things. There's a whole lot that we do to run an organization the size of the Department of the Air Force that has to do with optimizing personnel. How many people should we have in each career field? Where are certain career fields overmanned that we could potentially leverage, ask people to retrain to be more optimally positioned to support the new national defense strategy, because that's what we're here for, is to really be that military element of national power and to serve the needs of the national military strategy as defined by Washington. So that's what we're here to do. So we can optimize personnel, we can optimize the budget. Budget optimization is a continual challenge because Congress gives us a certain allocation of funding. And today we're having conversations around the money that we're going to get in 2023. The way the planning, budgeting, and execution cycle works, it's 2 years in advance. So, right now we're throwing a target out 2 years into the future for financial requirements for everything from aircraft to services at installations. But then when you get to the year of execution, you have to tick and tie as change happens over time. The year of execution is always different than the planning that you do 2 years from now. We don't know what the world is going to look like in 2023, but we have to have the systems that are auditable, trackable, and effective to be able to tie what we're spending money on back to what Congress gave us money for, to be that responsible steward to the American taxpayer. So there's lots of ways that it can be leveraged.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. And I think we only have about 1 minute left. So I just wanted to do a quick follow-up question in regards to the personnel and the staffing in training. Do you work closely with human resources and the L&D officials and executives when you're doing this? Or are you able to do that pretty much internally as well?
We absolutely rely on the functional experts. I mean, as the Chief Data Office, we're trying to create the policy and the tools and facilitate the exchange of information. We're not the personnel experts. We're not the logistics experts. We're not the fuels experts. Those people exist, and we're trying to help them do their job better as the Chief Data Office. So, when they present us with challenges like privacy and data sharing, we work with them to implement solutions or put policies in place so that they can do their job more effectively.
Okay, got it. No, so it looks like we're out of time. Thanks again, Colonel Destefani, for joining us. It was a great discussion about the inner workings, actually, of the Air Force Chief Data Office and the Vault IS program. So, on behalf of everybody at Opal Group and in the audience, thank you so much again for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day and a great event.
Thanks so much. Take care.